Thanks for joining us today. I'm Gabe Garrison, owner of Backwoods Pursuit, and today we're going to do a Blue Cooler review. We have got the Blue Cooler 60 quart in the Ice Vault series and the Blue Coolers 110 quart wheeled in the ARC series. Both of these Blue Coolers were part of a huge 16 cooler test that we just completed, where we wanted to see which coolers held below that 40-degree temperature mark for the longest period of time in some really hot conditions. Definitely check that review out. There is a ton of data in that review, not just how they did in those temperature testing. They'll put a link to that review down in the description for you. But in this video, I want to look specifically at Blue Coolers, some of the features and details that they offer that are unique to them, as well as how they performed in that big review and where they ended up in their thermal retention and some of the other factors. Always appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Put a links to that down in the description, as well as a link to our website, backwoodspursuit.com. We have a ton of gear reviews over on the website, and I'll put a link to Blue Coolers so you can check them out for yourself. Let's get started. All right, to get started, let's take a look at some of the specs and details of these coolers. And the first thing we want to do is see what their actual internal volume is of both of these. So we went ahead and measured that with a liquid volume. We filled them both with water and then filled them all the way to the top until the lid was displacing water. So we knew we had the cooler completely full. So the 60 quart Ice Vault here came out at 57.9 quarts of actual internal volume. And the 110 quart in the ARC series here came out at 107.3 quarts for its actual internal volume. So they were both close to that advertised volume, but just a couple of quarts shy, so not too bad there. Some were worse than others as far as the measured volume. We measured all 16 coolers, so check that out. That's in the review as well. But they were both pretty close to the advertised volume, which was nice. The weights here for both of these, this 60 quart came in at 36.5 pounds on our scale, and the 110 quart in the ARC series came in at 46 pounds even. Now keep in mind, anytime you have the wheeled versions of any cooler, you're going to have a little bit more weight added into that, so the non-wheeled version of this 110 is going to be a little bit less. So those are the weights that can make a difference if you're wanting to carry these around, and if you do so, the wheeled versions are awfully nice. If you have a bunch of ice and drinks or whatnot in a cooler, it gets pretty heavy pretty fast. So those are the bare weights. Now as far as the cost per quart, we calculated the cost per quart of each of these coolers based on that measured internal volume, the actual internal volume that we measured, to give you an idea of how much of a value you're getting with the in a cost per quart basis. So the 60 quart here came at a cost per quart of $4.07, which is quite low compared to some of the other competition. Again, all that data is in that big review. And then the 110 quart wheeled came in at a cost per quart of $3.67, which is really, really good. So these coolers ended up being a really good value in their cost per quart as well as their thermal retention performance, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but they both did really, really well in those categories. A few other features here that are of note here. We really liked the latch system that you get here with these Blue Coolers. It makes for a really easy opening and closing. It's not cumbersome whatsoever. These latches did get in the way a little bit of, if you open the cooler, it kind of wanted to get in the way of the lid closing, but not too bad. Not as bad as some of the others, but it is a really nice and clean latch system that is really, really easy to operate. You have your lock mechanisms here, or the places to put a padlock there. These are not certified bear resistant containers, unfortunately. That is one of the downsides to Blue Coolers, but you do have a cost savings with these versus some of the competition, which is significant, so there's certainly some give and take there. But either way, you do have the area for a padlock right here, so you can lock the coolers down if you need to. Now they both have built-in handles here, which is nice, so if you want to pick up the coolers that way, then you can certainly do so. And then the non-wheeled version has a strap and a rubber handle here, which is nice. Depending on how you want to carry, you do have both options. They both have just one drain plug on the one side here, and it is on the smaller side. The opening is a bit small, so if you need to have a quick dump of water, it takes a little bit longer than some of the others out there. It would be nice if there was two, and that drain plug hole was a little bit larger, but it's not a deal breaker. It just takes a few extra seconds there to drain your water. One thing that is really unique about these, that is awesome about the blue coolers, you've got a pressure release valve here. You can go ahead and press that. If you go somewhere that is a significant change in elevation, and sometimes just a change in temperature overnight or whatnot, can make that lid difficult to open. So if you go to open the lid and it's kind of stuck on there, and it's kind of sealed that lid in there, you can push that pressure release valve and it just allows you to open that lid up really easily. I've had that problem with some other coolers that don't have a pressure release valve. You're either trying to release the pressure from the drain valve, which can be a problem if it's full of water, or you're fighting to get that lid open. So that is really nice, especially given this is one of the lower cost coolers that we tested, and it's really nice that they have that pressure release valve built into it. Now I also wish that these drain plugs were tethered. They are not tethered. I always like having a tethered drain plug just in case you go to dump the water and set the drain plug somewhere at your campsite or whatnot and then forget to pick it back up. It's nice to have that tethered so you don't do that and dummy proof that, but these are not that way, so that is a bit of a bummer. Warranty on these is 5 years, which is not bad, but certainly not the best. Some out there have lifetime warranties and some have a 1-year warranty, so they're kind of right in the middle as far as warranty. Not too bad, but not the best out there in the warranty department. Now, as far as the performance, that's the most important thing. That's why you buy a cooler, is how do they keep things cold. In our big review, in our big 16 cooler review, we put all of them inside a Kodiak canvas tent and evenly distributed them all throughout that tent. The tent provided some great conditions, up to 100 degrees in the tent on several occasions, where that heat was evenly distributed throughout the tent, so no cooler got any treatment different than any other cooler. We filled all of the coolers with a 2-to-1 ratio of ice to water bottles inside the cooler, and that was relative to the actual measured size that we measured. So they were all the same as far as their ratio of ice to water bottles to the volume of the cooler. That way it's equal playing field across the board. So that's how we set the review up. Then also checked each cooler for the internal air temperature, not the ice temperature or the melted water temperature. That's going to be colder than the air temperature. We wanted to know what was the air temperature of all of the coolers. We opened them 4 times a day and recorded all those temperature checks. We wanted to know where they would last or how long they would last, keeping that internal air temperature below 40 degrees. We also marked below 50 degrees and how long they lasted until all the ice melted in the coolers. Again, all that data is in that review, but we'll go over some of it here in this video. So that's the setup for the review. How did they do? The blue 60 quart here was actually the best in its class. It was really surprising. It lasted 6.5 days below 40 degrees. And that was quite incredible. I did not expect that coming from these, and particularly some of the other ones that were in the review. Really surprised by that performance, but it did phenomenal. 6.5 days below 40 degrees. And the other interesting note is that both of these coolers kept the internal air temperature below 40 degrees until all of the ice was melted, which is important because if you have meat in the cooler, that safe storage temperature for meat is 40 degrees. So you want to have that internal temperature below that 40 degree mark to make sure your meat is safe inside the cooler. So with both of these coolers, you know that is going to be the case. If you have ice in the cooler, your internal temperature is going to be safe for meat. So that's really important. The 110 quart wheeled here took the overall 4th spot in that review. It did phenomenal at 8 days under 40 degrees. And then also same thing, all of the ice was melted at that 8 days. So they hit both of those benchmarks, meaning they kept that temperature below 40 degrees until all of the ice was melted. So really impressive performance for both of these blue coolers in that big review. It far exceeded my expectations for these coolers. All right, now finally some of the pros and cons that we came away with after testing these blue coolers. Obviously, like we just mentioned, they did excellent in thermal retention. They far outperformed not only their price point, but certainly our expectations in that review, with 6.5 days under 40 degrees and 8 days under 40 degrees. As a whole in that review, the larger coolers did better. They lasted longer, keeping that temperature under 40 degrees. But this 60 quart at 6.5 days was phenomenal. Really impressive. Love that pressure release valve and really like their latch system. It's super easy to operate and does a really good job. A couple things we didn't love about these: you just got the one drain plug and it's not tethered. Wish it was tethered, at least to tether the one that is there. They're not certified bear resistant, so if you're camping in a spot that requires that. These ones unfortunately don't meet that requirement, so you could have, that could affect the decision as far as what cooler you pick up, but these are not yet certified that way. So take that into consideration depending on what cooler you want to pick up. Now as far as warranty, the 5-year warranty is good but not great. Some are better, some are worse. So it's kind of right there in the middle. Not necessarily a pro or a con, but I would like to see a better warranty with these. And then one last thing, the finishes here aren't quite as good as some of the others out there. There are a few things like little scuffs and marks and cuts in the finish here that were there when they came. So just things that are not quite as refined as some of the others. But again, you have a really, really high value cooler that performs really, really well and does what a cooler is supposed to do. So those are kind of some of the things that you can overlook, or if it's really important to you, then go with something different. But they weren't perfect in their appearance and some of the things that came to us from the factory here with these coolers. So those are the blue coolers. They did excellent in our testing. We're really, really impressed with these, especially for the price point and the value that you get. They're some of the best value out there in coolers, particularly given their performance. Drop any questions or comments you have for us. We'd love to help you out if we can, answer any questions if we can. Thanks for watching here today, and we will see you next time.